It was a pretty good dent in soup, so.
So, welcome to the Durham Town Council meeting for February 2nd, 2026. We'll have a roll call of members.
Heather Grant.
Robin Vogt.
M. Friedrichs.
Todd.
Friedman?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Todd Selleck, the administrator.
Sally Needell.
Wayne Burton.
Darrell Ford.
Curtis Reicher.
And we're going to take a vote to allow a Zoom participant, Cardin Welsh. Should be back in a minute.
He looks a lot like a chair.
You can still do the vote. Huh?
So maybe we'll do the vote and Cardin.
There you go. Don't do anything embarrassing.
Vote to allow a Zoom participation. Cardin, I assume you're on Zoom because you're not in town.
Oh. Mute.
Yes, I am out of town.
Okay.
Aye.
Robin Vogt, aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye.
Sally Needell, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Darrell Ford. Aye.
Curtis Reicher.
Thank you. So welcome, Cardin, too. The approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as written. Is there a second?
Second. Councilor Grant.
Heather Grant, aye.
Robin Vogt, aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye.
Sally Needell, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Darrell Ford. Aye.
Curtis Reicher, aye.
Cardin Welsh, aye.
There are no special announcements today. So we'll move on to the approval of the minutes, and I'll make a motion that the town council does hereby approve the town council meeting minutes for January 12th, 2026.
I second the motion.
Second. Is there any discussion, conversation? Okay. Council register?
Curtis Reicher, aye.
Darrell Ford abstained.
Wayne Burton,
What, so
aye.
you have to just tell a reason of it?
I wasn't at the meeting.
Thank you.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Sally Needell, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye.
M. Friedrichs abstaining, also because I was absent.
Robin Vogt, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
Cardin Welsh, aye.
Very good. Those minutes are approved. And report from UNH Student Senate External Affairs, Deba? And your last name too, please.
I'm Deba Ajamian. So we just started up Senate, so we had our first Senate meeting yesterday, and we passed a resolution regarding the e-scooter signage downtown, basically saying that we are in support of it and we are encouraging it just, to promote public safety, and we're looking to get the same signs that are going to be put up in the Durham downtown on campus as well, just to kind of make it clear that, scooters shouldn't be ridden on sidewalks and whatnot. But yeah, that's the main thing.
Have you had any discussion of the House bill that is looking to allow students to have guns in their dorm rooms and on campus?
Somewhat, not in my council in particular. But yeah, it is definitely something that's just being talked about amongst the student body as a whole. I think a lot of students are kind of concerned about it. I have gotten a few questions from people if, I personally think it's going to pass or whatnot, and it seems that it's something students are a little bit worried about, but we haven't had any definitive conversations about it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have the pleasure of fighting that bill on the floor of the House next Thursday. If that bill passes, it'll make us only the third state in the country to have that kind of law. 31 states prohibit weapons on campuses. 11 states allow them, but they have to have licenses. They have to show licenses. Can I make a statement on behalf of the students during my speech on the floor Thursday against House Bill 793, do you think? Or can you get a vote of your students somehow?
We could, could you remind me when you said you're speaking against it?
Thursday afternoon.
Unfortunately, Student Senate as a entity can't take a political stance because we have to be a nonpartisan group. But yeah.
There will be more discussion about it in the next couple of days.
If there is, could you email me?
Yes.
Because they're representing that there's 10 students who are working on this, and they are adamant that, because we've already had a hearing, so it's important to get all the students' opinion.
Yeah, Student Senate can't make a stance on it, but I mean, the student body definitely feels one way or another, but it's just not up for us to determine that.
Thank you.
Of course.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you for your report
It
today.
was really great to meet you all.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have public comments, and please state your name and address before speaking, and each of you will have 5 minutes maximum.
Good evening. My name is Mike Lehrman, Cedar Point Road. As some of you know, I'm a candidate for town council, and I want to be very clear at the very start of this that has nothing to do with why I'm here. I'm here following up on previously expressed concerns about the town budget and the impacts from that. I spoke to you on December 1st asking for restraint on the town budget and had provided you with an estimate at the time of what I thought the impact would be for town, schools, and county taxes combined for 2026. Back in December, based upon the estimates at the time, including school at the time, it looked like about 8.6%. And that included 4% for the county budget, which was a guesstimate, which I just sort of ran past one of the delegation members. I recently sent you an update to that. And based upon the composite estimate for 2026, we're now looking at 9.54 on the assumption that the school district proposed and recommended warrants go through and the county proposed budget goes through. With that, that would be a $1.80 increase per thousand valuation. So on a $500,000 home, we're talking about a $900 increase. On a $700,000 home, which is closer to the average for Durham, $1,260. And that's on top of what we had this past year. Regarding the county component of the tax rate, which is in there and kind of gets buried, it makes up 10% of Durham's property tax. It seems to fly under the radar year after year. Relatively few taxpayers have any understanding of what it pays for, and there's very little input on that budget. It is, of course, the county delegation that has the authority to pass that tax. And I'm just sort of suggesting here this evening that perhaps the town council, on behalf of taxpayers, would consider requesting the Durham delegation members and/or the county commissioners to come before the town council at some point in a public forum to let them justify that budget to the public. Would it surprise any of you to know that in 2024, the most recent year that numbers are available for, that our county total tax levy of $40.3 million, which Durham pays about 10% of, $7.2 million of that was to subsidize an operating loss for the county-owned nursing home. The county is now in the process of discussing the 2026 budget, so there is time and opportunity to have input on this year's budget that they're now proposing at 5.9. It's unfortunate, I think, that neither the town or school districts have done the simple math exercise that I did, which is what I provided you with, to inform taxpayers of the composite impact of the individual actions of the school, town, and county. I believe that more effort could be made to provide taxpayers with information to help them make decisions. In truth, some real effort to communicate between the schools in all three towns would not be unreasonable to look at each entity's long-term capital needs and perhaps occasionally coordinate capital expenditures. And I realize that wouldn't be possible often. Given the impact of the 2025 revaluation shifting a significantly larger tax burden to residential property owners and the anticipated increase in 2026, combined with the recently projection that was in your last Friday update of a 4.4% increase in 2027 and potentially 10.3% increase in the town taxes for 27 and 28, I think there needs to be a higher priority on growing the tax base, which I've talked about before. Which of course leads me to the last item on your agenda this evening, which is the zoning amendment recommendation voted unanimously by the planning board to allow 4-story buildings in all areas of the central business district up to 50 feet in height. I would ask that that be endorsed by the council and moved to a public hearing on February 16th. It is an opportunity for this council to take a step forward, help facilitate redevelopment of the downtown area, and help revitalize that area also, in addition to growing the tax base. And it's been debated and discussed for a lot of time this past year. I think it's time for action, one way or the other. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We can't hear in the audience, so I'm wondering if there's a way that we can hear better?
DCAT control room, can you increase the volume in the audience area of the council room, please?
Is that any better?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Clark, and I live on Cedar Point Road in Durham. I am on the board of the Durham Business Association, and I am here tonight to share the board's perspective of the 4-story, 50-foot zoning amendment now in front of the town council. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Durham Business Association as a board member and on behalf of the entire board. Concerns about overdevelopment in our town, and we share those concerns. At the same time, if Durham is going to adequately support its infrastructure and long-term needs, our zoning must evolve. The Durham Business Association is focused on supporting small businesses while also planning responsibly for future development. For that reason, we support this update to the zoning ordinance as a balanced and forward-looking. So that's me speaking on behalf of the Durham Business Association. So I want to say thank you for your consideration, and we do support this hearing. I'm going to put a different hat on, and I'm going to speak as a citizen. Not about the zoning, not about the 4 stories, which I also personally support. I'm just a private citizen and a business owner. I own Clark's American Bistro downtown. I also work at the university as a professor in the business college. So speaking as a private citizen and somebody who's lived here for a long time, and park in town, park on campus, I want to express frustration with the ongoing parking situation for the town to address the parking situation. And I'm hoping and encouraging you to add discussing the parking situation to a future agenda. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Anne Marie Harris, another question about the sound. Is it possible to turn the television on that's in the hallway so that some of us could sit out there or listen to that? I don't know how you turn that hallway television on.
Yes, it is. I can do that.
Hi, good evening. Roger Hayden. I live at 4 Lexington Street in Dover, and I own 2 properties on Main Street, 44 and 46 Main Street. There's been lots of discussions on the zoning, in particular, planning board, the last meeting, it was arrived at a 4-story limit. This would allow the developer a little bit of wiggle room to be able to make the apartments maybe a little more spacious at 50 feet as opposed to trying to cram them in at 42 feet. So I support that 100%. I'm also selling those buildings, and I have a signed purchase and sale agreement, and I'm hoping that the developer has the ability to do that, to make a nice building, a nice property there. After 36 years, I opened Hayden Sports in 1988, last century. It's gone very well. I currently own that property with 2 tenants, and the Durham Laundry Center, I've owned that for almost 20 years. I have to impress upon you that the Durham business community is in a downward spiral. The buildings are getting older. There are some new buildings, obviously, but businesses aren't going to be coming into town wanting to pay the high rents that you would have to get to pay for those spaces if they have to do major renovations on any of those properties, especially my properties. I can tell you that as a fact because I own 2 of the businesses in those two buildings, And for the last 2 years, sales have gone down so much so that I can't even collect on my business in my building. If I did that, they would both work at a loss. And there's a lot of reasons why sales are down. Obviously, it was tough getting through COVID. But in 1988, when I started it, downtown was booming. And I started out in the basement of the Durham House of Pizza in '88. And in 1999, I bought the Outback 44 building where Hayden Sports is right now. And in the year of '99, I was doing $1 million in sales out of the basement of Durham House of Pizza. A lot of that was mostly UNH sports and things like that. When I moved the store into the Outback building, because the Outback gift shop sales dropped down, gift shop style, I moved the store up and continued to have very successful years. Those days are over. And in order to get businesses to come into this town, they're going to want to be looking for new spaces that are roomy, lots of air room, nice and new facilities. I won't even talk about where their employees will park. I actually have 10 parking spaces on my property, which makes it great for tenants. They all have parking spaces. Other businesses I know don't. With that in mind, if the zoning doesn't change for the better, which I approve of the 4-story, I actually thought 5 and 6 stories would be much better, because you could build a 6-story building and make it condos, have a condo association, and have a limit on leases that you couldn't lease to anybody for less than a 6-year lease. That would cut out dormitory style living, and maybe mixed age groups would live downtown. Again, where would they park? Nobody was going to buy a condo if they don't have a parking space. But right now, I want you to really hear someone who's been around here a long time, more than 36 years. My wife worked at the university for 30. And you're in a downward spiral. And this is the time you have the opportunity to stop that downward spiral. Even if you do this, it's still going to be probably 5 years to 10 years before the downtown can come back as a business district. The benefit of new buildings down there is you're going to get more tax revenue. On my properties, I pay about 20, almost a little under 30,000 in taxes. Put a 4-story building where my property is, and you're going to easily hit 100, 150. I don't know how the budget is, but you got to talk to Todd about that. But anyway, that's the situation from someone who's down there. I work every day down there.
Thank you for your time.
So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good evening. I'm Ben Bulkley, 569 Bay Road. I want to build on some of the comments we've heard this evening already. The Friday update had a paragraph in there about revenue increases over time, and it cited the specific numbers. If you calculate the growth rate of that, and this is total revenue, so general fund, sewer, water, 7%. If you take the property tax slice of that from 21 to 24, that's 5%. Now doing the same thing, taking the property tax slice of the future from 20 to 29, 10%. And it's felt like 5% over the prior years. Each year it's been a little bit. And this year, it's felt substantially more. And we're going to continue to see that, is the message. 10% is 3 times inflation. So that means a pretty substantial shift in household economics for all of us, really. So I have two recommendations or 2 thoughts for you to consider. One is around the governance. When making important substantial decisions, And you can see it in the packet tonight. You know, there's some important decisions in there. And you do see actually term effect or the long-term impact of these different elements you're considering tonight, for example. But what you don't see is the total effect on the town. And so my recommendation is to make the long-term forecast more a part of the conversation among you, which will make it more visible to us in the town so we can see and we can share our thoughts about these bigger decisions and the impact it has on us more directly. So what that means technically is update the long-range forecast regularly, especially when there are important decisions. Secondly, pertaining to this evening's topic later about the ordinance, I mean, the evidence is building pretty clearly. We need to diversify the revenue base to grow it. I just have one little odd occurrence that a childhood friend of mine is a developer of affordable housing. He happens to know Durham pretty well because of student housing. And I asked him, I said, Dave, how do you feel about Durham? And he had some pretty strong opinions about not really wanting to work in the town. There's just a lot of risk. There's a lot of unknowns. It's difficult to build. And I can say from building our own house back in 2011, 2012, it was quite difficult. Building a house is difficult anyway, but Durham was particularly challenging for a lot of the contractors we had coming in. So the ordinance change you're considering, and I favor the third option, the 50-foot, 4-story, because I think it sends a message beyond Durham. This childhood friend happens to be from Connecticut, so this is, a known problem up and down the East Coast here, that Durham is difficult to build in. That ordinance sends a message, and I mentioned this at the last town council meeting, that we'd like to indicate that we're open for business, and that sends that message. Because until then, you're not going to really get all the options on the table. By sending that message, you say, hey, we want to hear what is possible in this town. And until you see what those options are, it's just more limited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Michael Carter, 4 Willie Road, Durham. The council tonight is presented with a veritable smorgasbord of possible amendments to the zoning ordinance, all dealing with building height in the central business district. I won't address the specific amendments, but instead want to focus on the rationale that proponents have put forward in support of these changes. Proponents have presented 2 arguments, the first of which is that increased population, residential population downtown, will improve the foot traffic and support revitalized business in the downtown area. The second argument is that the increased assessed values of those downtown properties that might be developed would offset residential taxes by shifting the burden over to the commercial side. Both of these arguments have the veneer of truth, but in fact are fallacious when examined more carefully. And I would ask the councilors to weigh carefully the quantitative assessments of these suppositions, and they are suppositions. First, with regard to argument 1 having to do with the increased population downtown, there's a question of how many. Perhaps a few hundreds would come to the buildings if they were expanded. This stands in contrast to UNH's prediction that its undergraduate population will decline several years. And moreover, and I just realized this in looking at some of the online listings at Realtor.com for Durham, is that several large landlords have properties up for sale, and specifically 140 Madbury Road, which is the housing unit just north of Route 4, 260 to 262 Mast Road over near the UNH horse barns, 275 to 279 Mast Road near the Channel 11 building, and the closest of those buildings is at 10 to 14 Stratford Avenue in the Greek House area over on Stratford Avenue. These properties have a combined asking price of over $26 million. Their presence on the market signals something about the desire of their present owners to exit the student rental business. And I think that this is going to continue, to be honest. The market is signaling very strongly its concern with student rental housing. So I would submit to the council that new residents of these possibly expanded units in the Central Business District will be UNH students moving closer to campus from these outlying areas. They won't be families, they won't be young single professionals, and they certainly won't be workforce housing candidates. Moreover, these new residents will be interested in traditional student-oriented businesses, which fails to address the different interests of long-term residents. I've been here for 36 years in Durham, 39 in the area, used to frequent downtown all the time. I would encourage the council members, if you've not already done so, to read Dennis Meadows' 10 January letter to the planning board, which is in their section of the town webpage. It really is worthwhile because it reflects the... With regard to argument 2 about the shift of the tax burden over to the commercial side, I think this is a kind of false belief. If the shift occurs, it will be minuscule by comparison with the total value of residential properties outside the Central Business District 1. There is a recent petition by some town residents of 14 January to the planning board, urging the planning board to go for the increased height options. And this really appeared as a rearguard action after the town published its tax rate in early December. And I think many people's taxes went up dramatically, but perhaps more so for those living in the waterfront or near the waterfront districts within the town. I think the petition is misguided on the scale of any possible offset that would come from shifting the burden to these presumed downtown developments. I'll close with this observation. Regardless of which of the amendments the town considers, the council considers tonight and ultimately adopts, the potential changes that are wrought to the downtown district will be permanent, even if the goals of downtown revitalization and decreased residential property taxes are not realized. And the last thing that I want to comment on, which I think a previous speaker did, was the elephant in the room that's overlooked here is the role of the school district in its budget. And I will note that the town's portion of the overall tax rate is only 27%. The school district comprises 63% and the county another 10%. I'm going to say this with tongue firmly in cheek. If residents want their tax decrease, go to tomorrow night's deliberative session for the school district and argue for a 10% reduction in the school budget. That will have the desired effect of some desire, and more so than allowing for large buildings in Central District 1. And I'll stop with that. You won't make any friends if you propose that tomorrow night, but I say that facetiously as someone who has voted to support local K through 12 schools for 39 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth Olshansky, Packers Falls Road. More on building height and welcome to Day. The challenge before us, how do we redevelop Main Street in a way that is structurally viable and architecturally sensitive? Do we want 50-foot straight up building as approved by the planning board? Or perhaps 45 feet with a pitched roof and dormers? Both are structurally viable. Only one meets our architectural design standards. You'll be considering many, including guidance from our zoning ordinance and design standards. A quick reminder, the purpose statement ordinance for Central Business District includes redevelopment that maintains and enhances our small town character. Our architectural design standards ask to provide human scale architecture that is sensitive to neighboring buildings and the streetscape, and that's an important one, is compatible with our architectural heritage and maintains a small town feel that is important to Durham residents. That's a quote. What is meant by human scale? Human scale is about proportion, relationship, presence. It's the quality that makes a building feel approachable rather than imposing, welcoming rather than alienating, connected to its surroundings rather than dominating. And here's a nice example of architecture by Michael Keane that was recently approved. So what's interesting here is you have two 4-story buildings, one with a pitched roof and dormers and that all-important 3rd-story eave line versus 4 stories straight up, similar to what the planning board has approved. And this one on the left being more of human scale. And you can see that in this pedestrian perspective, where again, that 3rd-story eave line is very important to reducing the mass and scale. So it's not just the difference of 5 feet between 45 and 50. It is that this building on the left has an eave line at 35 feet, and that is going to be the experience of what someone from the public, a pedestrian, would experience. The 50 feet straight up approved by the planning board is out of scale to adjacent buildings and the streetscape. It will not meet our architectural design standards, and you can see right here, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. In your packet, you have options 2A and 2B, so here's the difference between those. One with a 3rd floor eave line back. By the way, Doug Banks warns against a 48-foot flat roof building with a 4th floor setback. And David Choate warns against all flat roof options for a college town. Here it is, again, not quite fitting into our scale. And even at 45 feet, it not quite working. So pitched roof with dormers at 48 feet, and this one with a 36-foot eave line, aligned with David Choate's recommendation for pitched roofs over flat ones in our college town. And also, Doug Banks strongly recommends pitched roofs only at 48 feet. And here you see, it begins to look a little bit. Pitched roof at 45 feet is really what is aligned with our standards. Again, it is strongly recommended by David Choate and in favor of pitched roof. It falls within the recommendations of Nick Isaac in that 45 to 50-foot range. Doug Banks believes 45 feet is preferable because it's more human scale. And just a reminder, 250 residents sent you a letter on August 4th, presented it, asking for pitched roofs of modest height and dormers. And you know, this is how that's going to read. So the question is, I've lost my place. Here it is, nestled in the streetscape. I know the petition you received recently is asking the town council to leave the design elements to our architectural standards at the planning board. And I'm saying that's not enough because...
So, Ms. Oshansky, your time is up.
I have someone who's willing to donate 30 seconds more.
We're not going to be able to do that tonight.
No. Okay. Well, just in closing, I don't think leaving this up to planning board members who have inadequate background in architecture is a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you would, please. Thank you.
Stay.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
It's real paper, guys. Hope you enjoy that. It's going to feel good in your hands.
Thank you.
Members of the Durham Town Council and Administrator Selig,
My name is Tom Daly, and I reside at 190 Piscataqua Road. Tonight, I'm speaking to you on behalf of myself, Mike Lerman, Ben Bulkley, Don Galini, and Michael Mornell. From a period starting on January 22nd to January 31st, which is only 10 days, we have collected the support of 148 community members for a petition to strengthen downtown Durham by adopting revised CB1 zoning ordinance. On tonight's agenda, items 12A, B, C, and D involve amendments to the Central Business District Number 1 zoning, and our ask to the Town Council is very simple. First, amended amendment of 4 stories and 50 feet, called Amendment Number 3 in tonight's packet, to a public hearing without delay. And after the public hearing, the zoning amendment, unanimously recommended by the Zoning Board on January 14th, allowing the buildings of up to 4 stories and 50 feet. We believe that timely action matters. We recognize that zoning alone will not solve every challenge facing downtown Durham. However, further delay will only compound the challenges that exist before us today. Timely consideration and adoption of the ordinance is needed to provide clarity and predictability for property owners, businesses, residents, and the broader community, and to reduce ongoing uncertainty about Durham's future. This issue has been debated and publicly discussed on multiple occasions, and we believe it is time for a decision that will move Durham forward. We support the Planning Board's revised ordinance for 2 key reasons. The proposed amendment allows reasonable design flexibility by avoiding rigid roof rules, while still requiring all projects to go through site plan and architectural review. Those review standards afford the Planning Board effective tools to guide and manage the design character and quality of the proposed projects. Straightforward zoning rules also encourage reinvestment in existing downtown properties, strengthen local businesses, and help create a more sustainable entire community. A healthy downtown supports Durham's long-term financial stability. The other proposals are just simply more complicated. As an element of our electronic petition signature process, we included a comment field. I'm going to read to you verbatim a selection of comments made by our peers in our community. I support this petition because the Planning Board's revised CB1 zoning amendment is a balanced, well-considered step towards strengthening downtown Durham. It supports local businesses, encourages responsible growth, and provides clearer rules for residents and property owners. Moving the process forward now reduces uncertainty and helps ensure a vibrant, economically resilient downtown. We need to encourage and not discourage development in the town to help alleviate taxes and prevent cuts to our programs. There is a way to develop and update the town to serve students and local families while keeping downtowns small. While the Town Council has previously rejected the Planning Board's recommendation, it should recognize that a lot of input by concerned citizens went into this proposal, which the Planning Board members adopted after serious consideration of the alternates before them. Would love to be able to spend fun money in Durham versus other nearby communities. We need restaurants, a pharmacy, and a place to work out. So many wonderful things that made Durham such a nice place to raise children are now gone, and we're just left with high taxes and continual stripping of the conveniences and places to meet friends. Durham's downtown is in need of redevelopment to restore vibrancy to our community. We have seen that the current zoning code is prohibitive to development. Please pass the amendment. The community is coming to the Town Council with a real and serious ask in moving ahead with CB1 in a timely fashion. Please note that our prior petition for a resilient downtown made to the Planning Board, of which you all were CC'd upon, generated support from 105 community members in only 7 days. The community is ready to move forward with this critical issue. With thanks on behalf of myself, Mike Lerman, Ben Bulkey, Don Galini, and Michael Mornell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. May I sit next to you so I can hear you?
Yes.
This is the third council meeting I've come to since this summer when the sound system does not work for me because the technology is so advanced it's screwed up, unlike the old technology we had when I sat at this table for 4 terms. Thank you. So now I can hear what you're saying.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to finish what Beth was saying, and it's about the architectural...
Will you please introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Carolyn Singer, 5 Woodridge Road. The architect can be easily waived by the planning board members who, while well-meaning, usually do not have a background in architectural design. These impact decisions should not be left to those without adequate background. And this was evidenced by the lack of February 14th about whether 50 feet straight up meets our design standards. It doesn't. Whatever the town council decides should align with our existing zoning ordinance and the architectural design standards. This will save building owners, developers, and architects time and money. It will spare the planning board unnecessary time and headaches. It will streamline the approval process, and it will produce a more attractive downtown.
I'm Julian Smith. I live at 3 Chesley Drive. I first arrived in Durham in 1959 to visit the university, thinking of applying for a job there later. I then arrived in Durham in 1963 with my fiancée, my wife-to-be. In the fall, we drove up from Washington, where I was teaching in Georgetown, drove to Portsmouth and turned left and came along Route 4, which back then ran straight from Portsmouth to Concord. We came across the bridge over the bay, stopped at Newark's for supper, arrived in Durham, etc., etc. And we loved it. It was a very convenient town to live in. I saw The Graduate at the Franklin Theater in downtown Durham. I bought my last wool suit from Brad McIntyre on Main Street. I went to Houghton's Hardware when I remodeled houses, etc., etc., etc. And that's all gone. Now, over the last months, I've heard my old friends and neighbors talk of the downtown feeling we have lost. And I'm sympathetic with that. But Durham is a lot, say the Bates Motel in Psycho. That used to be a thriving business, and then they moved the highway away. That is what has happened to us. Durham used to be, as I said, the main route, 2 ways. And now downtown Durham has become a traffic circle, and little more than that. And I'm partly responsible for changes in regulations and zoning that made all of that student housing possible, beginning 2006, 2007, 2008. We've had almost 20 years of that kind of development, and I believe the council and the planning board has a responsibility, a duty to the remainder of this town to create the demand, the desire, and the possibility for families and couples to live downtown without being swamped with more student rentals. Now, the state legislature says we cannot legislate or regulate whether people are married, whether they're students or not, and so on. But with the right kind of development, we can have good housing downtown with long-term tenants or condo owners who have a vested interest in seeing the downtown develop, to have a drugstore, to have more restaurants, more things that ordinary families need, and so they don't have to go to the Lee Traffic Circle or to Newington or to Newmarket, where you can get almost anything you need in Newmarket. So I'm going to ask you tonight to amend your agenda so that you can place the the last agenda item, 12, the new business item, and place it right after the public hearing. So these people who have come to speak to you about the height of buildings and the occupancy of buildings downtown can hear what you have to say about the item C and D on agenda item 12. And that has to do with the two statements that the public hearing can be set for February 16th. That doesn't mean that it will be set. I'd like them to have you, to hear you, to be able to hear you right after this, the last person who speaks on the first of those two ordinances, and whatever consideration you have on items A and B. And I really appreciate that if someone would make a motion to amend the agenda and actually get a second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Robin Mower, Britton Lane. I'm going to hope for this all to end while I'm, oh shoot, wouldn't you know? All righty. I hope everybody was as lucky as I was when they came to Town Hall tonight and saw the beautiful full moon. I think we're very lucky to see that from this small town, and I hope we'll be able to continue doing that. Apologize for not having had my presentation up earlier. Okay. So, tonight I want to talk with you about, the building a future for downtown Durham. Nothing's showing up. Let me just see what's happening. I'm plugged in.
Gwen, it says in DCAT to check your connections.
Okay,
That's
I'll
the
try it
correct
again.
coordinate,
Is
should be
that-
working.
Nope, not coming yet. Okay. Apologize. I'm going to try it again. Thank you. May have to come later, I guess, if this is not working. Beth, did you have any experience? It takes a minute to come up? Huh.
You do have an HDMI if you want to
It's an HDMI,
If you want to
yeah.
direct plug in.
Oh,
That might be better.
okay. I hadn't thought about that. Let's see. Is that showing up? It's not showing up, is it? Okay.
You have to go to mirror.
I'm sorry?
You have to go to
Choose to mirror.
settings and external
Oh,
display.
shoot. I apologize to everybody. I haven't done this in quite some
know how
time. So it's
computers
in my
work.
mirroring.
Microsoft.
Nope. Does anybody have a Mac and know how to do the mirroring?
Believe I'm doing helping
Sure.
you?
No, I can't believe it. I'm usually helping her technically, so. Okay.
Well, you have to go to display.
Display, okay. Displays, and then, nope. Okay.
Scroll up a little.
Nope. Oh, this is a bummer. I'm so sorry. Let me step away in case I can figure this out and somebody else can take my place for the moment. Excuse me.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Walsh. I am the pastor of Great Bay Anglican Church, right on 42A Main Street, right next to Hayden Sports, and we rent from the D-Hop guys, which are wonderful. I'm here tonight to express my strong support for you all to approve the amendment to allow for 4-story and 50-foot buildings. For two reasons. One, because commercial real estate is essential to the thriving and flourishing long term of our town, of Main Street, where my congregation is. And second, because in order to get that level of engagement and of investment, it has to be able to be economically viable. So first, my first post right out of seminary was working for the Archbishop of Rwanda, and one of my main concerns was helping to work with small landholder farmers. And it's called the country of 1,000 hills, the land of 1,000 hills. And one of the main issues with farming is soil erosion. they cut all of the trees, and in order to maintain the soil, you have to do something about it. So we help people plant strategically trees along the boundaries of their farms. And the trees would do a number of things. They put down roots, and the roots help maintain the soil, but they also created shade where other plants could grow. And insects and animals could also take shelter. So what was just one plant actually created an ecosystem difference. The reality is that Capitol on Main Street is like soil. It's like topsoil. And when things die, when you cut down everything and the roots die, that topsoil is... If you go and look at downtown Durham right now, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing buildings that deserve to be recapitalized, whose root systems have died. And for reason, you can see the Capitol leaving our town, leaving Main Street. The solution to that is to build something that puts down roots. When you invite somebody to put an enormous commercial real estate building, you are saying that they are committing a giant amount of capital to Main Street. One of the things that is true about our world is that money flows more freely now than it ever has, which means that it is easy to attract, but also very easy to lose. People can take their money and go anywhere else. One of the main exceptions to that is commercial real estate, where if someone comes and develops an $8 million building on Main Street, that $8 million is invested for the long term in our community. But it's not easy to make that work financially. There's been a lot of comments today about the architectural value of different buildings, but there hasn't been a lot of notes about what makes something economically viable. Ever tried to put together a capital stack for a commercial real estate building, especially with interest rates the way they are now, as opposed to the way they were 10 years ago when many of the other developing, you'll know that the margins are slim. And the difference between 3 stories and 4 can make the difference of actually putting this investment into our town or not. So the question is, are we actually going to commit to stopping the economic erosion of Main Street? And are we going to create the conditions necessary for people to invest in our town? And that is why, as the pastor of GBA and also as a local business owner, I own Shoreline Counseling Group that has 23 mental health counselors that serve the Seacoast. I ask that you would amend the zoning and allow for there to be a chance for us to have real long-term flourishing in businesses on Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I try it again? Well, I'm mirroring, is that it? Mirror extend to. May take a second, no. All right, I don't want to waste anybody's time, so I'm just going to read then. I want to talk about building height, human, Robin Mower, Britton Lane. Talk about building height, human scale, and my revised recommendations, all in the context of revitalizing downtown Durham. So if vitality is the goal, how would a height escape or the experience of walking through downtown or meeting others or enhance social capital? Zoning in isolation will not meet the challenge of downtown Durham. Arguments from experts Doug Banks, Dick Gottschneider, and Dennis Meadows have all been ignored. Urban planning addresses many factors, but it appears that urban planning has been AWOL. A recipe for a healthy city. Urban planner Jan Gell is world-renowned for his guidance to the cities seeking revitalization based on decades of research and on-the-ground observation. First life, then spaces, then buildings. The other way around never works. So building height and street width ratio. Experts know what works. Heights of buildings are in harmony with the width of the street. In small towns, wider setbacks and sidewalks create space for taller buildings, and architecture is people-oriented. That's human scale. While human scale is something we feel, it is not just a subjective, I know it when I see it. Urban planners have studied what works and have derived objective measurements. As commercial real estate broker David Choate has said in this very room, flat roofs are the bane of the seacoast, alluding to their ubiquitous ugliness. but the definition of bane aesthetics is the source of or can cause harm or ruin. So prediction on small downtown Durham's central Main Street, I'm talking about the center of Main Street only, flat roofs on 2 tall buildings could be the kiss of death. As Doug Banks notes, it's about human scale, whether or not we're consciously aware of it, and a straight wall going up 4 stories feels very different from 3 with a 4th that recedes, whether with a setback or with a pitched roof. So the urban planner Jan Gell says the life of a city lies between buildings. That public space must provide protection, comfort, and enjoyment. And how do you start to do that? The design implications of human scale are that you decrease space for vehicles, increase space for walkers, you add green spaces, public places, and alleys. Christopher Parker, who is now the deputy city manager of Dover, says, and others have said this, once we stop our car and get out of it, we become pedestrians. And vitality is driven by pedestrians. They look and shop. They meet others. They eat at outdoor cafes and talk. Their very presence encourages others to do the same. Can we help pedestrians and thus vitality? Yes. Winter in New England is tough on pedestrians. Can too much of downtown become shady? Yes. A digital tool to calculate shadow length and direction to see the effect of different building heights at different times of the day and year? Nope. Have we prioritized the pedestrian experience? Nope, but Concord has. Place attachment is powerful, so let's leverage what we do have. Legacy architecture helps establish a sense of place that binds us together. Think the historic district, to One Madbury and the Juicery, which echoes the historic district, to Clark's Bistro with its New England vernacular. These establish a sense of place that binds us together. So now we say Exeter pitches roofs. Their architectural design in their site plan regs says, in order to prevent the construction of warehouse-style buildings, buildings with long horizontal roof lines, all new buildings and additions shall have pitched roofs of 3 to 12 ratio or greater, or gabled roofs where practical. It looks to me like Exeter architecture and human scale, since pitched roofs drop the eave line down 1 full story, bringing it back to human scale. So another small town to which we sometimes compare ourselves actually requires pitched roofs. Why not Durham? So I would say that in the Main Street carve-out, the central part of Main Street, we've got a Goldilocks solution potential. 45 feet high maximum, and require a pitched roof and dormers. That's what I urge the council to consider. Consider, as we started out in this whole process, the rest of downtown, you can do something else. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can almost hear you.
Larry Harris, 56 Oyster River Road. I just want to say a few words about the elephant in the room. I heard earlier a suggestion that we should make the school budget cut their projections by 10%. Well, there's a government in Concord that would be more than happy to have you do that, because they're on the way to trying to kill public education. And the sticker shock that we're all feeling from from our property taxes and such is also related to the fact that no broad-based tax in the state. When I arrived in '69 with Anne Marie to start a position at the university, 30% of the budget was from the state. Now it's 3% or less. Friday Updates just talked about the fact that the state is going to cut part of its distribution of funds town. That's going to cost a great deal. Right now, our problem is not just trying to come up with a better way to build the town's business vitality, which those of us who've been here a long time miss tremendously. Torrington may do a job of helping with that in the plaza, but the reality is that Concord is our real problem, and I think you should, as was mentioned earlier, reading Dennis Meadows' letter to the planning board was spectacularly relevant and such. Of course, I like pitched roof and such. But the reality is that our costs are skyrocketing because Concord is doing everything it can to destroy public education and make everybody pay through property taxes rather than having a realistic system of funding for the state. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Diana Carroll. I live at 54 Canny Road, and I'm here this evening to read a letter written by Eileen Sahagian, who lives at 4 Briarwood Lane. Eileen could not be here this evening, and I just received her letter today, and the good news is it's short. Dear members of the Town Council, let me just add, it's short. That means every word counts. Dear members of the Town Council, I appreciate all the work and passion around the issue of roof heights downtown. I would imagine that everyone wants a nice, welcoming down with a small town feeling. We are a small town, after all. The most reasonable way to go is to mandate sensible heights, such as 45 feet with pitched roofs. Flat roofs do not evoke the small town New England feel referenced in Durham's architectural design standards. 50 feet with no architectural stipulations, as proposed by the planning board, would result in an out-of-scale, ugly downtown. Thank you, Eileen Sahagian, longtime resident who yearns for a nicer downtown. I'm not going to speak this evening except to say that you've heard me speak before. Nothing has changed. I do so hope that the scale that is taken for downtown is a human scale. If anything, we can't give up our humanity. That we have to keep. We have to keep the human. And I think that's really important. I think some of the slides you saw tonight do show that. Many of the words that you've heard this evening do show that also, along with others and I think you hope for. Thank you.
I'm Diane McCann from Oyster River Road, but I'm reading for Joe and Maggie Moore, who live at 138 Lee Road, Durham. And they're writing about Main Street building height considerations. As long-term Durham residents, we respectfully ask members of the Durham Town Council to consider lessons that might be learned from neighboring communities as they have undertaken the challenges associated with recent unprecedented demand for development. In Dover, 9 years ago, the historic St. Charles Catholic Church on Central Avenue was demolished. In its place, Bradley Commons was built. The Commons is built for first-floor commercial stories of residential use. The design is straight up from a narrow, darkened sidewalk and has a flat roof. While homes on one side of the building are dwarfed and aesthetically incompatible. One critic of Bradley Commons nicknamed it the Bub, the Big. For comparison, the Bub is about a city block long, a distance similar in length to the section of Durham's Main Street campus in Mark Henderson's nicely renovated building at the Madbury Road intersection. Durham does not need its own version of a single or side collection of Bubs. In Portsmouth, the renaissance of Portsmouth has been met with both dismay and enthusiasm. The one constant and ever-continuing negative issue has been parking. It is an issue that seems never to be considered in advance of building approvals and one that requires retrograde planning, inconvenience, and taxpayer local resident cost. We have not heard all the discussion about Durham's consideration of Main Street zoning, but parking seems a low priority topic, a large elephant in the room, or one to be on the Portsmouth track of issues to be dealt with later. Durham has limited parking for Main Street businesses, even for residents, a factor that regrettably keeps us from being the same as an active in-town customers we once were. In our opinion, this is no small issue. We trust that the examples we have provided will be considered in your deliberations, alongside the very thoughtful presentations made by concerned residents and the professional expertise of Doug Banks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jeff Berlin, 3 Cowell Drive. We're talking about humanity. Someone brought up humanity. I just want to say that I had a quick story about humanity. I grew up in this town. I graduated from Endicott College. I came back and I worked for Collegiate Communities, who built the cottages of Durham. And we rented an office on right downtown on the Pettybrook lot. And one day, Julian Smith came in to my office, and he sort of provoked me into a friendly debate, but it got a little bit heated, and I got a little upset. Julian kept time. And I called my boss at Capstone Collegiate Communities, and I told them that Julian Smith, this guy named Julian Smith, had come into my office and sort of created a ruckus and a problem for me in the day. And they're like, well, how did you treat him? I was like, well, I asked him to leave. And they're like, you asked Julian Smith to leave your office? I, at the time, did not know who Julian Smith was and how much of a reputation he had as a tremendous fellow in this town. But I almost got fired, and if it wasn't for Julian Smith, who I'm sure I've disagreed with on many topics, as well as many others, Wayne, I'm sure we've had our disagreements in Concord and other places. Julian, even with that interaction that I had with Julian, he was gracious enough to talk to my boss, and he was the one that actually let me keep my job, basically, because of his testimony and his own humility. So I'd say thank you, and in the friendly debate that we have over the heights and everything, just remember that we are human, and that we should all respect each other. Wayne, like, I have tremendous respect for your service and everything that you've done despite our differences for everything. And one thing I'd just like to highlight, everyone's saying human scale, just like to remind everyone that there's economic scale, and that a healthy economy equals a prosperous humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak?
Good evening. Thank you for, I guess, what's going to be a long evening. I'm Judith Spang. I live on Wiswall Road in the Outer Shire. I very much like to address the issues of how the town will look. I do feel that we shouldn't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. If we want to attract businesses in the downtown, we have to make it an inviting town to be in. Not only architecturally, but the choice of businesses that we have here, which I think could be improved. But I'm really here to talk as an economist. But really, I think one of the things that is really coming up at the last minute is a concern about property taxes. And I don't think that calling for a 50-foot building heights is going to alleviate the taxes of somebody living on the water and on Great Bay. We haven't really seen what the taxes would be if it's 45 feet, 50 feet, 3 stories, 5 stories. So I think we're just assuming that the bigger it is, the less property taxes we're going to have. There is no reason for us to think that it is going to make a meaningful difference. So what we're doing is we're trading something we know for sure, a beautiful little town and something to work with, for something that is probably going to be very marginal in terms of what it does for us. And I tried to look into what the property taxes would look like, and it depends very much on how many units are in the building. We don't know any of that right now. I was a little alarmed to hear Roger Hayden say, I hope the developer will do something nice with my building, as though, how our town winds up looking depends entirely on how we're interpreting our zoning ordinances. But I wanted to talk also about the communities that we have in Durham. There is a 500,000 square foot building going up in our industrial park. That's where we should be looking for our taxes. The West End is going to have a lot of opportunities for taxes. We don't have to be barraging our little Main Street in order to get a modicum of taxes. And I think that looking at things in a town-wide scale is going to be a lot better than our trying to attach too much importance to 42 feet, 45 feet, 50 feet. But again, I do think that the important thing for us to revitalize this town is to make it beautiful, like Exeter is. We don't need to fill it up with maybe students, maybe not, but more pedestrian traffic for the same kinds of enterprises that we have now in order to attract people from outside. So let's think carefully about what we have to sell. We want to be open for business, but we want to be open for business for the kinds of a business that is going to enrich the community and bring in more people from outside. And I think that is going to be affected greatly by what the architectural standards are. I don't see any real reason to have a 50-foot flat-top structure. It's not going to do anything for your property taxes. We do have, I think people are forgetting, it was so long ago that 2 signed petitions saying that they wanted to have modest-sized buildings with dormers. Get that? We have a new petition coming through that has a different orientation. Are there people here who signed that petition?
Which petition? Which one?
That ours from this summer. Yeah. So, yeah. There's we have to put faces to these people who are signing these petitions, right?
Thank you for your comments. Would anybody else like to speak? We appreciate all of the comments tonight, and I'm sure all the counselors will take that into consideration as we deliberate on this matter. There was a request to change the agenda. We will not be changing the agenda. We've approved it already. It should not take too long before we get to the main event, so we will continue with our business here. The unanimous consent agenda. I understand Councilor Needle may want to pull item E due to a potential conflict.
Yes, I would like to pull item 7 in the list, just to address it afterwards, because I need to recuse myself from that vote. And I'd have to recuse myself or miss out on all the rest of the unanimous consent.
Excuse me, 9F. Excuse me,
F.
9F.
Yeah, 9F, sorry.
9F. So we will we'll pull that, and we'll go ahead forward with unanimous consent on the rest of those, unless anybody else has an issue.
I'd like to pull C as well.
Okay, we'll pull C. Any other changes by any of the counselors? All right, therefore, I'll make a motion that, hang on one second. The town council approved the first 2026 warrant billing computed from the fourth quarter water and sewer readings of 2025 totaling $736,857.83. Commit the bills for charges to the tax collector for collection and authorize the administrator to sign said warrant. And further, that the Durham Town Council does hereby schedule a public hearing for Monday, February 16th, 2026 on a resolution authorizing the acceptance and expenditure of unanticipated private donations totaling $10,000 to be used toward the public gallery at the Bickford Chesley House. And further, that the Durham Town Council does hereby, upon recommendation of the administrator, award a solid waste collection contract of both the single stream recycling and solid waste collection to Casella Waste Services of Rutland, Vermont, for an annual value of $378,684, commencing on or around July 1st, 2026, about a 6-month duration in year 1, and subsequent annual periods extending through December 31st, 2031, with a 5-year renewal upon mutual consent of both parties, subject to available funding, and authorizes the administrator to sign associated documents. Is there a second?
The goals, too.
One more.
The goals.
Excuse me, I missed that one. Okay. Yes, sorry. And further, that the town council accept the administrator's progress report as of December 31, 2025, on the list of approved 2025-2026 town council goals adopted on June 16th, 2025.
Second.
We'll go for a vote. Councilor Grant.
The Grant, aye.
Robin vote aye.
Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye.
Sonia Dell.
Aye.
Darrell Ford, aye. Curtis Reister, aye.
Hardin Welsh, aye.
Thank you. And we
You want to do this one first one because it'll take no conversation.
The 9F? Yes, sure. So, at Councilor Needle's suggestion, we'll deal with 9F first. Regarding the agreement between the town of Durham, a potential pilot agreement between the town of Durham and Riverwoods for Riverwoods Phase 2. And I'll make a motion to recommend that the town assessor and administrator approve a payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreement pursuant to New Hampshire revised statutes annotated RSA 72:23-N between the town of Durham and Riverwoods Durham, and authorize the administrator to sign all associated documents necessary to effectuate said agreement.
I'll second that.
The second. Is there any discussion on that?
Going to recuse yourself. I just want to note that subsequent to the publication of the packet, there were a few minor changes made to the pilot agreement that were discussed with the council this evening. One had to do with correcting the current tax rate in the pilot. A second had to do with the address of the rear building at Riverwoods. And the third had to do with the minimum base payment amount that is used to calculate the pilot in 2028. Otherwise, it remains
Any other comments? We'll go ahead and take a vote. Councilor Burton?
Darrell Ford, aye. Curtis Reister, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
Hardin Welsh, aye.
Oh, sorry. Heather Grant, aye.
Robin vote aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye. That passes. And on 9C on the agenda, go ahead and make the motion to get started. I move that the Durham Town Council hereby ratify the collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Durham and the Durham Professional Municipal Managers Association for the period January 1st, 2026 through December 31, 2029.
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Friedrichs?
I know that a lot of work has gone into this negotiation, but I just have to I have to express my concerns that I don't think we can continue to compensate our employees at this rate at this time. To have a 10% raise right now, putting us at kind of the 75% top in the state with what's going on with our tax base and what to residents and the increases we're anticipating. I just feel like that. I feel like that needs to be a discussion before the council and a serious consideration. And it's not to undermine the negotiation efforts that went into this, but it's a very significant cost, and I think we need to be discussing it in the council.
Any other comments? Okay. We'll go ahead and vote then.
Sonia Dell, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Darrell Ford, aye. Curtis Reister, aye.
Hardin Welsh, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
Robin vote aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye. Okay. Councilor Needle?
Okay. We have 2 committee appointments tonight. And glad to see 2 of our attendees at IMAC meetings becoming alternate members to the committee. So I'm going to start with a motion that the Durham Town Council hereby, upon recommendation of the Integrated Waste Management Advisory Committee Chair, appoint Allison Jumper, 23 Mathis Cove Road, to fill an alternate membership position on IMAC with a term expiration of 4/29.
Second.
Second, great. Allison is here. If you have any questions for her, do you want to come back up, Allison?
Sure.
Just to introduce yourself if you want. That's all you really need to do. Thank you, Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison Jumper from 23 Mathis Cove Road. I'm looking forward to serving on the committee.
Awesome. Great.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you for investing your time.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and have a vote then. Councilor Needle?
Sonia Dell, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Darrell Ford, aye. Curtis Reister, aye.
Hardin Welsh, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
Robin vote aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye.
All right. I also move the Durham Town Council hereby, upon recommendation of the Integrated Waste Management Advisory Committee Chair, appoint Stephen Fellows, 14 Stone Quarry Drive, apartment 115, to fill an alternate membership position on IMAC with a term expiration of 4/28.
We'll second that.
Stephen's not with us tonight, so we wouldn't have a chance for you to do a face-to-face with him, but...
All right. Anybody have any questions or comments? Yeah?
Sonia Dell, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Darrell Ford, aye. Curtis Reister, aye.
Hardin Welsh, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
Robin vote aye.
Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye. Thank you both and appreciate your willingness to serve. Next, we have Gail Jablonski. Is she?
She is here. Let me
or
just
nearby?
see.
Oh, she's coming for the door, I
She's
think.
here coming?
She comes.
Okay.
To give the end-of-year financial report through December 31st, 2025.
Just kidding.
You have been
Not
summoned.
long.
Good evening. So I'm here to give the end of the year fiscal report for 2025. This is the unaudited report, and we've had a few more things come in since this has been processed, but nothing of significant value. So we did end the year on a good note. Revenues, our taxes as of December 31st were only 66% collected, but that was due to the due date of January 12th. As of January 12th, we had collected 96%, which is typical for Durham, but above many other communities, so we are lucky in that aspect. Our expenses, we show about a 96% of all of our expenditures, leaving about a little under $1 million in the expenses that were not spent. That money then does roll into the fund balance, so that'll help us going forward to future years.
How much was that amount?
It was a little under $1 million.
Thank you.
993.
And as far as all our other funds, the water, sewer, parking, Depot Road, Churchill Rink, and library, they all were under budget as well. Revenues were up in the parking fund and the Depot Road fund, which again, any excess in revenues over expenses in those funds rolls into the general fund. So that helped us out as well. And did we lose Carden? Because I know he said he was going to have questions for me. Isn't that a bummer?
How did you do that?
How did you do that? I pulled a little cord under here.
That's just
It's not very professional, I know.
senior, right?
Definitely.
Okay, Gail.
Carden, where are you?
He's there somewhere.
What's happened to our reserves? What were the reserves at the end of 2025 versus 2024, 2023?
We don't have the 25 from the audit yet, but it should be around around 4 million. As of the end of 24, we were at 4.5 million, which was a 7.5% of our total annual expenses, which includes the county and school payments that we have to pay out.
Can I follow up on that question?
Yeah.
So how did we used 442,000 from the undesignated fund balance,
Yes.
but that balance dropped to 3.4 million. It seems like 600,000. Where did 600,000 go?
Well, we have the Eversource abatement, we have contingency money as well.
Yeah, so some of the abatement refunds have come out of that. That's how we budgeted them. And then also we used $1 million for the Madbury Road project and
The auditors look at the fund balance as of when the resolution was passed. So the resolution you passed for the 26 budget that included the 1 million in abatements for Eversource, they include that in the 25 fund balance that's already spent.
Thank you. Carden, you can continue.
Yeah, so what was it in 23, 24, and 25? I just want to get a sense of the direction.
All right, 23, it was about 7.7 million, or it was 4.5 million. And in 25, we're looking at probably 3.5, but again, that's before the audit, there's an excess expenditures rolls in, so.
Yep. And where does the 3.5 end in terms of our policy for minimum reserves?
We have a policy of 5 to 8%. That falls in about 6%.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And congratulations for making the budget.
Oh, thanks. You didn't hear my comments earlier, did you?
So in 2025, tell me that number again that you just said. It's 3.5 plus the $1 million that you just referenced,
Yes.
so it should be about 4.5 then?
4.5, yeah.
Thank you.
So the same as 2024,
Right.
essentially.
Essentially, yeah.
Hey, these are excellent results, by the way, both on revenue and on
Very
expenditure.
good.
Spending.
I commend the departments for all keeping close eyes and
For hitting
doing what they
budgets.
could to support.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is a good time to talk about budgets. Comment was made earlier, and people are concerned about the town's budget, and I don't blame them. But it was also mentioned that Concord was a problem, and I'm on the education fund. And it's not an exaggeration to say that they're trying to destroy public education. The state of New Hampshire will spend $50 million on called education freedom accounts with no limits, $5,000 per family to pay for private schools, some in New Hampshire, some not. That's a choice the state is making. And they have the money, but they chose to use it for that. On Thursday, without a public hearing, they will pass a bill for open admissions where any student in the state can go to any school in the state, which is going to throw everybody's out of whack. Every school district will not know who's going to be in their building. And there was no hearing in the Senate, there was no hearing in the House where they made this. We're very anxious to see what the governor says about it. The budget for the town is reasonable for a town this size. It is expensive because we have high expectation residents and in the school system. But there is a problem, and we have the lowest state support of any in the country. And while we are responsible for the town, I'm not trying to evade that at all, but recognize the situation we have. Have you noticed the drop in state aid since you've been here for quite a while?
There was a New Hampshire retirement drop where they used to contribute to retirement. This year, we're now looking at the meals and rooms tax at a significant drop in those taxes. I'd say over the years, I can't think off the top of my head, but I know there have been other things that they have funded that they have no longer fund, but.
In fact, in the retirement case, I think they were statutory to fund it, and now they've pulled all their money back. So,
Right.
because they used to match the contribution of the cities and towns.
Community, right. And they've tried over the years to bring that back, at least on a prorated portion, and it has never passed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to add one general comment of congratulations and using this as reinforcing that the money that is being requested by the town departments is not fluff. It's not frivolous. It's not. They're not using the budgets that they're given. This is the cost of doing business currently with the skyrocketing cost of living and exponential cost of materials and other items. And so please understand that we have a responsibility to shore up Durham, for sure, but the managers of that money are doing a good job. And we just got a low-risk assessment from Blodzik and Sanderson, and we've got another inspection in February, correct? Of
Yes,
Blodzik.
coming up.
Yep. So the managers, that they are using our money responsibly. They're using their money within the bounds of the law and for the services to the residents of this town.
Thank you.
I just know with the state retirement system, the state used to contribute 35% of the cost of the municipality share of our retirement costs, and all of that was eliminated. They fund zero now.
But the retirement costs did not disappear.
No, they've simply gone up. That's right.
There are some towns in this state that are going to go broke. School districts are going to go broke. It's a shame.
Any other comments? Thank you for your report.
Thanks, Gil.
So, under new business, the discussion of the planning board's ordinance recommendation. So in the agenda, we thought that we would open, setting this agenda, we open with some introduction to what we're looking at, and I'd like to make that introduction, if I could, to lay out kind of what we're looking at. The planning board sent back a recommendation for 4 stories, 50 feet in all of the downtown. When we started this process, we said that there were a number of buildings in what is now called the east side of the CBD that were zoned for 3 stories maximum, and the town council wanted to change that to 4 stories and leave the rest of the downtown alone. What has come back to us is a downzoning of the rest of the downtown, which I don't think people fully appreciate, that this recommendation from the planning board says 5-story buildings will no longer be allowed, either by right, conditional use, or by any way. The town owns 66 Main Street, so the town is looking at downzoning their own property, a significant property of over an acre on Main Street. There are also other properties in the western part of the CBD that will be downzoned, just as Mill Plaza was downzoned from 5 stories to 4 stories. So we have been back and forth with the planning board. The council tried to improve and amend their original idea of raising that to 4 stories and put in some specific language for the town planning board to consider. We've since been advised by our lawyers that if we wanted to change that directive that we gave on, say, we said 42 feet, and if we wanted to change that to 44 feet, that would be a substantial enough change that we would have to send it back to the planning board for their public hearing, and then that would come back to us. So what has been presented to us by the planning board council asked for, and not sure that everybody realizes that if we were to accept that, we would be downzoning the rest of downtown. I would also say that, part of the rationale that we heard from the planning board was that conditional use is not a way to do this, to allow for a 5th story, or it makes things more complicated. There would seem to be a possibility that then it maybe ought to be allowed by right. But we weren't initially talking about that section of downtown, and now we are, because of the proposal from the planning board in front of us to downzone the rest of the downtown. We heard a lot, and this council said, yeah, we understand that, and it makes sense. And yet we get back from the planning board, never mind about human scale, you can go straight up 50 feet. And rather than send a proposal that we would already want to change as we send it back to the council, it may be worth our consideration to send back really what we exactly want based on public comments, public hearings that we've had. We realized that the height to be a modern building 12-foot height is a reasonable height per floor, where you have an 8-foot clear, meaning your ceiling is 8 feet. People would like it higher, and you can do this in a 12 feet. But in the place between the floors, you have to have sprinklers, you put HVAC systems, electrical, your internet, and other utilities for the building. And it is a modern building. So I wanted to just point that out, that a 12-foot floor height for every floor is real. Also see having to change and tweak some of the standard of uses and heights, so that when there's a 3-story building called out, it's 36 feet. When there's a 4-story building, it's 48 feet. And when there's a 5-story building, it would be 60 feet. There's been a lot of conversation since we last talked about this, about maybe we shouldn't have flat roofs after all. Maybe we should have pitched roofs only on the 4th floor and 5th floor. Or I'm not sure how you do a pitched roof on the 4th and 5th floor, but maybe you have the setback on the 4th and the 5th. So again, it's something for us to consider. And I would, and finally, people have been quoting master plans all along this process, and I pulled out some of, my favorite things in the master plan too, as it including, in order for downtown to grow and prosper, it must achieve economic critical mass. Reevaluation of the town's regulations could encourage such growth. Downtown does not this is from the master plan. Downtown does not currently achieve necessary critical mass. Without the critical mass, businesses cannot operate efficiently and thus sustain growth. And a vibrant and healthy downtown and commercial core can create opportunities for establishing and maintaining a strong and positive sense of community. It could also maximize values of properties within downtown for assessment purposes. So again, this part of the new business is for councilors to consider. Are we going to pass one of these 3, or should we pick one, focus on, and improve, send it back to the planning board one more time, we hope, and get the final plan that we think we want? So I'll leave it at that and open it up to other councilors for other comments.
I'll lead off with, I don't know that I understand the disparity in what you're asking for what we have in front of us.
We're being asked to approve a increase for a certain number of properties to 4 stories and to decrease from 5 stories
In
to
the
4
eastern or the
stories, the
western
rest
section,
of
the eastern
downtown.
section?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the same amendment.
That's not quite true. Where it's 4 stories everywhere. So we aren't, and it's 4 stories right now with 5 by conditional use. What we're cutting out, cuts out is the 5th story by conditional use in the rest of the district
Correct. You're taking out the 5th story in the western.
as a conditional use, right?
Yes.
And I guess one of the things I'm not sure was recognized would be that in part of the H at the West End, that there may be a developer interested in something out there that would also involve 66 Main Street. 66 Main Street, that spot, in order to be a hotel, might require 5 stories. And if we don't allow for 5 stories, you may find a developer that's not as interested in 66 Main. Anyway, it's a consideration that we've talked about the possibility of a hotel being there at some point. 4 stories may not be enough for a hotel.
Maybe 5 isn't enough, maybe they need 6.
Yeah, no.
And we won't have that.
Well, anyways, that's just a question is, are we willing to give up that opportunity to go beyond 4 stories in the westerly section?
Go ahead. This doesn't prohibit, 5 stories sometime in the future, maybe next month, maybe 3 months from now, But it sets the 4 stories, and that not everybody's going to build the 50 feet. They're going to build what they need. If they can do it in 48 feet, they're going to do it in 48 feet. They're going to put an additional 2 feet of material for nothing. So, if we want the ability to put 5-story buildings in, we can tell the planning board to please look at that and see where that would be appropriate.
We have the ability now
I know.
with conditional use to put in 5 stories.
I
This
get
would
it.
take out that ability.
I get it, yeah.
I think the one thing you got to realize, though, is that 5 stories by conditional use has been in there for a really long time, and nobody's touched it. And there's a reason for that, to get a conditional use. And we have a reputation in Durham of having hard to get a conditional use through. So I think that the fact that we want to try and playing field at 4 without having to deal with conditional use at least sets us in a good direction. There was a lot of fear I heard from the community when we first started talking about allowing the 4 stories by right. There was a lot of talk about 5 stories. It kept coming up that the 5 stories was in there. And I think, a general feeling from some comments on the planning board by Paul is that there's the right place for a 5-story and there's maybe a wrong place for 5 stories. We've got a lot of good open space at the end of the business district where it's very open, obviously, because of the entire wide area of the university on the opposite side of our road. And so there's probably some areas, but I think that this is a really good baseline starting point, and it takes the fear of the 5th story away until we can strategically see something that makes sense.
I wanted to reinforce your recollection of that comment. I believe it was Mr. Doug Banks himself that said that 5 stories, but maybe right now there's are
Exactly. So I think what we would like to see is something this to the 4 stories of 50 feet, have that go through, and have a subgroup that says where would be the potential that we could do that with a 5th story idea, but really where it makes sense, not just flat have it as a conditional use across the board, which brings, I think, more angst. That's my opinion.
Thank you. And I'd like to point out, by the way, we have Paul Rasmussen, the chairman of the planning board here, if anybody has any questions or actually if you'd like to make any comments.
The town planner asked me to sit in because he couldn't make it tonight, so I'm sort of doing the dual role there for that.
Thank you for coming. Councilor Friedrich?
I just want to think back a little bit to, we've spent a lot of time coming up with different variations of things, and I think that we are all in past that has consensus, or at least enough community agreement to move forward. Because at this point, We don't want to continue to wait, meaning we could already have projects with plans being submitted if we had, gotten to this back in September. And the community consent heard, we started, the low end was, everyone wants to see 4 stories. I think that's really positive, okay? And the part that has been, this is a small section of downtown. It's not all of downtown. It's just a part of downtown that's more adjacent to some of the historic or more iconic buildings that some residents have stronger feelings about. The low end of that was 40 feet. The high end of that now is 50 feet. I think now, we've heard from people who are in the industry and can look now at community examples. We have we saw an example today of a building in Portsmouth, 45 feet tall, just got approved, as a project now with a sloped roof. So now we've heard that 45 feet with a sloped roof is a viable project. It can be built. We heard from architects, I think Nick Isaac, that was, his original request was 45 feet. 40 was too low. 42, also pushing it. But if we know that 45 feet is something that can be built with a sloped roof, and there's enough community consensus to agree on that, why don't we start by moving forward with something that the community can agree on? Because I think part of the difficulty and of the time I spent sitting on the planning board is that if you have it, I rather disagree a little bit with the petition that came around that is, if it is wide open to all the architectural standards, that is what has created problems in the past in Durham, because then there's a large, community voice around what sort of designs they want to see, and a lot of time is spent over and over again. And so if there's enough people in the community who really care, who want to see a sloped roof, and we can define that from the beginning, then a developer knowing that and is not doing multiple iterations of a plan, they're ready to move forward and it can get approved a lot faster. And encouraging to see that that's happening in Exeter, that's being built in Portsmouth. I think those are signals that this is economically viable, and again, it's only for a small part of the downtown. But if we can move forward with what we do have enough agreement on, then we can continue to reconsider things, months later from now or next year based on what we see come out of this. And if a project doesn't move forward out of something that we've agreed upon now, in a year, then that's a really strong signal that we need to do a bigger reassessment than that.
Paul?
I'd like to reiterate something Councilor Ford said, which was, just because we say it's 50 feet doesn't mean everybody's going to use 50. Portsmouth has a 50-foot limit. Building only uses 45 feet. The goal here is, and if I'm wrong, please tell me, but to attract capital investment to our downtown, correct? Right. So to do that, you sort of need to have the rules as everybody else who's currently getting the investment. Dover, Newmarket, Portsmouth, all have 50 foot for their downtowns, if not higher in some places. There are zones in Dover that go to 55 feet. Dover and Portsmouth and both allow 5 stories. There's significant sections of the Dover Dover splits their downtown into 5 different zones. 2 of them allow 5-story buildings. And they give height. They need to give height relief for those. The 50-foot applies, is a general statement, but for the places where the 5 stories goes in, they go higher. That's where Chittesburg, doing a lot of building in Dover now, it's all the 5-story buildings. If we want our 4-story buildings picked up, we need to be saying, look, we're playing in the same game as everybody else. We're not playing a lesser game, or it's going to be more challenging for you.
Thank you.
The other, just one more comment to that, so kind of piggybacks on Daryl Ford's as well, is that when we set the 50 and we have our architectural standards, there's also ways for people to come in with designs that provide I think, some architectural diversity. So, not just a straight line of whatever feet all looking exactly the same. So there's got to be some flexibility to say that there's people out there that do this for a living and know what is appealing and know what draws people in. And I think that's what we're trying to get at with the particular offer we have out there now with the 4 stories and 50 feet.
Thank you. Councillor Welsh?
Yes, I was listening to Paul, and Paul said we're trying to attract capital to the downtown, and I totally agree with that, but it's also we're trying to attract, and perhaps more importantly, vitality to the downtown. And that's where the question of human scale and streetscape and all that sort of thing comes in. So I think that's a more sort of rounded idea of what we're trying to do here. My thoughts are that we've listened, first of all, we all know more about street height now than we did 6 months ago. It's getting to be kind of more than we want to hear. So we had a petition given to us by, I can't remember, 250 people a while ago asking for something. We have a new petition by 150 people asking us to do something. I think they all have their reasons, and I think that all the reasons are sounding good, and I appreciate all the effort that people are going to in order to do this. And it's clear we don't have a consensus on any particular thing. Now, we asked for 42 feet. The council or the planning board came back at 50 feet. I think if we had something that was a compromise between the two, perhaps with, dormers or recesses, it would not satisfy anyone, which is probably a good thing, but it would maintain Durham's singular academic small town feel and give the developers, giving the developers quite a bit of opportunity here by going to 4 stories and taking out the requirement of 2 stories of commercial. I think something like 46 feet with some recessed requirement, and can we call it a day and move on? We can talk about this CU for certain parts of town as well for the 5th story, but it would be nice if we could put something together tonight, send back to the planning board that is a kind of a compromise between everything and move forward.
I'd like to ask Mr. Rasmussen also about some of the provisions that they would go, if we put forward an amendment tonight that agrees and says, all right, we'll do the first reading and move towards a final vote on it. But if we want to make further changes, for instance, there's a prohibition on more than 2 bedrooms. And there's a number of people looking at the market for independent housing for seniors, market rate housing for workers in the area. And many people buying a house today, when you ask, or or renting an apartment today, when you ask them what they're looking for, they would tell you 2 or 3 bedrooms. That 3rd bedroom being used for either work from home, or perhaps their kids coming to visit, or others coming to visit, but it's a flexible room. And the one that we're being asked to pass says 2-bedroom maximum. The other is the depth of retail at 50 feet requirement, where, again, with perhaps a developer says, you know what, we'd like to have an area in the back of the building or in some part of the building where Uber and other public transportation could come in undercover and pick up and drop off passengers. And retailers in front would say, well, we just want width in front. We don't want depth necessarily. So I just question how would kinds of changes to allow flexibility for both the depth of the retail and the number of bedrooms upstairs come afterwards. We're going to keep coming to you with change to this.
So, can we do it iteratively is what I want to come back. Why try creating a perfect ordinance now? If one of these is a good enough base for you to work from, pass something now, and we can come back and do that. It's just like Councilor Grant said regarding the 5 zones. Like, full intention, I'd like to have a subgroup made up of the council and the planning board and whoever else you want to bring in that would identify a pre-approved zone where, just like we were saying, one side is limited to 3, we have this other area here where 5 you can come in and it's permitted. All right, not even conditional use, we've already pre-approved you for 5 on these lots. You know, don't have to, the more we try to package into one thing, the longer this gets drawn out. Get something passed, and then say, this can improve it, pass it again. And if we come back and we do this 2 or 3 times, but the more you try to pack into the one single package, the less you get done.
Councilor Grant, would you like to make a motion?
What are we motioning for? Let me find it.
Whatever you want.
Whatever, come on, Daryl.
Councilor Ford, you're both representing and serving on the Planning Commission. And I will note for the record, it was a 7-0 vote by the Planning Commission to recommend this to this council, which is significant.
Okay, I move that we go with option D, which is the ordinance 2026-01, amending chapter 175 zoning article 7, base zoning districts, section 175-482, central business 1 district and central business 2, and article 7.1, use the dimensional standards, section 175-54, table of dimensions of the town code, set the maximum height of central business district at 4 stories and 50 feet, with a public hearing set for February 16th.
Seconded.
Where is the motion?
The motion is
The motion is to set a public hearing.
set a public hearing for the 16th of
Came with the
February in this room. at
It's
this
on the
meeting.
agenda.
Right.
Yes, for the councils.
And that would set the height at 50 feet and max floors for the entire downtown central business
Central Business 1.
1.
It would accept the planning board's recommendations that they recommended 7-0,
And it would
with no
also,
further changes of any sort to it.
it would remove the 5th story conditional use with
On the western side of town.
66th Street currently at play.
Right. And if we wanted that, or
Eventually.
wanted 5th floors, we'd have to come up with some solution to allow a 5th story in certain sites. Potentially through a committee.
And we are in the middle of trying to work on a MOA for that property, right?
Yes, it's 66 Main Street, yes. We're having conversations with UNH and the Ryan companies about Main Street might be utilized. There's nothing
Yeah,
concrete
but there's
right
nothing
now.
concrete at this point. And
It's
is
an
there any-
idea.
do you have a time frame?
It
July?
would be ideal to have this settled in 2026, and the sooner the better, that 5 stories could still be allowed
Yeah.
on that property.
Sure.
More than one is interested in developing that property, bringing it on the tax rolls, and putting a significant building there.
Let's do it.
As in 3 months, perhaps, they'll be ready to talk about something. But we'll see. It's
Okay.
moving slowly.
I'm not following everything because it's confusing, but I'm at 45 feet with slope roof. Would what we're voting for bring that about?
No, so you should vote no if that's what you
You
want.
should vote no. The other thing I would say is I don't really want to look like Portsmouth or Dover. We're not a city. We're a small village. And the small village is actually a set of, because what we should be spending a lot more energy on is industrial and development. I was on 3 commissions in the North Shore. We never talked about residential. We talked about where the money is, where it's commercial or other kinds of development. Because whatever we do downtown is not going to get us a lot of money. Where we really need to go is look around the town and other sites, I think. And what will attract people here is that we are a village, and we're not a downtown Dover. So I can't vote for this if it's not 45 with this roof.
Councilor Vogt?
Make a quick comment about that. We're not a village. We're a college town. You look at Storrs, Connecticut, and you look at other communities, northeastern-based college towns. They have made the transition to being recognized as small villages. You look at Storrs, Connecticut, over the years, from the 60s through the 70s through the 80s, they made a large commitment to saying, we want folks who work at the college and want to be part of this community to become a part of the community and be recognized as the college town. So discussion of a village and everything, I understand it. But we are a college town at the end of the day, and I think that sets us apart from Portsmouth and other communities, and we should recognize that by doing something like this.
In all due respect, I've worked in Maine, I've worked in Vermont and Mass. They had the advantage, the town existed. We're not a town with a university in it. We're a university with a town in it. Amherst, Massachusetts is separate from the campus. Orono, Maine is separate from the campus. They're two separate entities, so we're this very small area. I haven't been to Storrs, quite honestly. Burlington, Vermont certainly is separate from the campus, although there's some residences there. And it's my son lives, so.
Well, they kind of like this.
And I have all due respect for, I also want to remind people, just so they don't forget, I'm a taxpayer in town too. And I know my tax bill went up just like yours did.
I believe all of us.
You believe all that? Is there what's the difference in revenue from a 45-foot building with a slope roof and a 5-foot building with a flat roof? Does anyone know?
Yeah, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is making it flexible enough so that somebody wants to come here and develop it.
Okay.
And I guess my argument is that actually flexibility has sometimes been the problem, because then it gets hung up in the discussion of architectural standards. If it's clear that this is something that the community wants, there's not going to be community opposition to it, that's helpful for the developer to know from the outset.
I would like to see us, whatever height we end up with, that we not point out to us this evening about the value of an eave line between the third and the fourth stories to help keep things at human scale. And that looks like a pretty standard potential to use. It's that Beth had in her presentation where that eave line is, even on a building that is very flat-faced, putting that eave line in there breaks up that straight up and down and can give that human scale. So if we're opening ourselves up to more height, we may be able to help ourselves out with, I think, which is something that is probably pretty doable and pretty straightforward, which is adding in that eave line between the third and fourth stories.
Would that be a substantive change?
Nothing straightforward.
Yeah, and I would also like to see the pitched roof be left in as well.
Are those two things substantive enough to require going back? That eave line and a pitched roof mandate? Or would that be something that would have to be totally reworked at the planning board level, Paul?
Were those items that were in the last one you sent back to us?
The pitched roof was
Pitched roof was an alternate, either a 10-foot setback.
Line 2 was, I think both were.
If they're both part of that one, then we've had the public hearing on them. But I'm not an expert as to what is actually a substantive change.
That's a question.
I would say that you could schedule your public hearing, and while you check and confirm that it's not a substantive change, if that's what you wanted to do.
And those issues could come up in the public hearing or after it in our discussion.
But what do you, I'm unclear what it is you would want to do to the motion, the initiative before us? That would be 50 feet. Are you saying modify that to require a pitch roof and
a eave line?
Eave line?
A question, Mr. Chair, for Paul. What's frustrating for me is that we're talking about all this in Main Street when you've got an acre of parking lot with nothing on it on the other side of the street, where small malls seem to be coming back with custom stores. And I've talked to Aubuchon a few times about getting a hardware store back, or getting, it was Stuart Shane's actually, where we bought our suits and ties. And I've lived here 50 years. And I go back to when the corner was a restaurant. What is the future of the mall here in
Costco.
At Newington,
you mean?
Yeah, that's what I thought we were talking about.
There's nobody there when you drive
Todd,
back.
I think Todd can answer that. He's been
Future of
talking.
the mall?
We know the future of the
You
mall.
talk about Fox Run?
No, he's just talking about.
I thought he merged between Fox
I'm
and
talking about Mill Plaza.
He's talking about Mill Plaza. But Todd,
Mill Plaza's
Todd, why don't
green.
you answer that, please?
It's half empty all the day.
So Torrington is in the process of making some cosmetic improvements to the rear building, Building 2.
They look good.
And it's looking good. There will be a anchor tenant, a restaurant, to be Chipotle at the corner of the building. That's what that ornamental feature will be the entrance for. And Torrington's working hard to find a tenant in what was the Rite Aid site, but the market's a bit weak right now. But they're talking with people, they just don't have anything to bring forth right now. And I'm whether it'll be a pharmacy, because the pharmacy business is changing and they are moving toward mail order and other ways of delivering pharmacy. So we'll see what happens there. There's no major redevelopment plan for the Torrington site. It's a cosmetic makeover of kind of what's there now.
And
Yes.
And they've got their hands full taking down the mall and the two malls down in Portsmouth. Thank you.
So I think we're ready to vote on this. We'll start with Councilor Register.
Curtis Register, aye.
Darrell Ford, aye.
Wayne Burton, no.
Sonia Del Nay.
Joe Friedman, aye.
M. Friedrichs, nay.
Robin Vogt, aye.
Heather Grant, aye.
Carton Roush, nay.
It's 5 yeses and 4 noes, so it passes.
And that will be the first reading then on our next meeting.
Do we?
No, that was the first.
Well, this was the first reading.
Excuse me, the public hearing, excuse me, the
Public
public hearing at our next meeting.
Do we have any other motions, though?
The council could conceivably move another initiative for public hearing, and then you could hear feedback on both and decide that, or not.
Are we setting people up for conflict with that, though?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we need to own it, whether one way or the other. And we'll hear the comments at public hearing regardless of the topic. The perspectives are gonna be perspective.
But if we want to move something forward, we have to have it moving forward as a public hearing and go through the procedures. So I would like to move that we hold a public hearing for an ordinance change that would be restricted to CB1 as originally intended, that it would increase to 4 stories. It would remove the second floor requirement for commercial space. It would have an eave line between the 3rd and 4th story, and it would be set to 45 feet.
May I ask you, please repeat that?
Sure. So it would be a version of this amendment that would not touch the entire downtown, so it would not alter 66 Main Street's current zoning. It would be...
So you didn't mean CB1 then? You meant those buildings that were set aside as 3-story buildings?
Thank you. So It would be the area of central business, section 175-42, C 8, 9, and 10. So the original smaller area of impact that the discussion first centered around. It would be raising that to 4 stories. It would be removing the requirement for a second floor of commercial. It would be requiring an eave line between the 3rd and 4th story. And it would be setting the maximum height at 45 feet. Which is halfway between 40 and 50 and seems to be construction-wise feasible according to Portsmouth.
So I think that would need to first head back to the planning board. We'd have to do a council initiated change back to the planning board for the planning board to hold a hearing on it, and then they'd send it back to us.
It's a version of everything that has been discussed already. There's nothing new.
Right.
But you're worried that it is still a
Yeah.
substantive change.
Because the height is changing. What we sent to the planning board was 42 foot high, and this would increase it to 45.
Even though the planning board has already heard 50 feet. So, 50 is greater than 45.
Yes.
We've been advised that a 2-foot change in any direction.
Up or down should go
Even
back.
if we've
That's
already,
substantial.
even if we were discussing 60 feet and we want to go to 44 feet,
A different ordinance, though.
It's a different animal.
It's a different, yeah.
Is this ordinance that has come to us, this third one that we just voted on, because it's initiated by the planning board?
Right.
It has to go back to them, whereas dated by us. Sent to the planning board for their advice and given back to us with their new ordinance. Yes?
Well, the main thing about that I think really makes it substantive is that you're focusing just on that one area that was being eliminated, and you're saying, no, now we're going to keep it and we're going to apply all these other things. That's really, really totally different from anything that we've discussed. So that would definitely have to come back to the planning board.
And I think twice we've already heard from the planning board what they think of that.
Right. And they're in an advisory role.
Has it been seconded?
It is not.
Well, given the most recent vote, what happens next?
We have a public hearing at our next meeting.
We do.
Yes. And at that time, we can either decide to do something or decide to do nothing.
Is Emily's still on the table?
It has not been seconded, Carden, so it's...
I'd like to add something to it. I'd like to add that it have a...
Does that mean you're seconding, Gordon?
And I will second it.
There you go.
And are you amending it?
Let me just, if I could just say something in defense of that. You know, we've heard a lot of information from a lot of people about how important something like 45 feet is. I'm not an architect, I'm not an expert on all this, but I listen to the experts, and I've lived downtown been living in the town and spending lots of time downtown for 31 years. Town's very special. That area of town is very special. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference one way or the other in terms of who comes here and why, if it's at 45 feet. But the experts say it is. So I don't think we should just blow them off and say, for this, small area of downtown, we're just going to go to 50 feet. And I know it complicates things a little bit, but I think it helps us really maintain the kind of the integrity and the history of the downtown of Durham. That's it.
Do we need to vote to accept that amendment?
No, yours was never seconded, so.
Carden just seconded it, yeah.
I seconded it.
Well, then it includes that amendment, right? That's what he seconded.
Sure.
No,
I don't think so.
then we have to, then we have to vote on it, yes.
So you're agreeing that that's added to your amendment, the pitched
No,
roof?
yeah. And hers is a motion.
A motion, excuse me. That it would be, so I understand it, or so we all understand what we're voting on, you're making a motion?
Yes.
Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. So it's looking at the original map, the original proposal that came to us. So this is only a portion of CB1 that had been previously identified as having particular historic or sort of character importance to the town of Durham. It is that map with the green
It's in our
sections on it.
town council communication, 12A, B, C, and D on the last page.
Yeah.
Those properties.
So the same properties. It would be increasing the height to 4 stories, which I think there's community agreement on is important. Removing the second story requirement for a second story of commercial. And it would be making a pitched roof, so that kind of even line between the 3rd and 4th story, but we can further specify that. That's helpful to developers. It eliminates, I think, potentially a weak 2-story. I don't know if anyone could build something outside of those guidelines, but
Can't visualize.
specificity is helpful. So eve line between the 3rd and 4th, pitched roof, maximum height of 45 feet, just halfway between 40 and 50, and it is being built in Portsmouth, so as it can be done.
What is it doing?
And that's been seconded?
What was the extra thing Carden wanted?
The
So
pitched roof.
clarification that it's a
Well, that's
pitched
just
roof.
happening right now.
I don't know if you can have an eve line without a pitched roof, but it's,
Yes, but
the fact that
can,
it's between the
that's
3rd and 4th story
HDMI board.
is helpful information, so.
I'm just trying to.
So if we, if
understand what you're saying.
if this motion is accepted, then we're already saying we're going to have a public hearing on what the planning board has unanimously said that they think is the right thing to do. And then we're going to throw this in as a change to that. Would it not be a change to that?
No, this is
This is
a
a
new
separate-
kind of council-initiated change that would go to the planning board, that the planning board would hear and hold a hearing on. In the meantime, on February 16th, the council will hold a public hearing on the 50-foot item.
Can we
So this would-
hold
but
the
this would-
public hearings at the same time and then send it to the planning board?
No,
See if I can avoid
because
this. Let's go to the
for the
planning board.
council-initiated process, it's got to go to the planning board first and then come back. See, I'm not sure why you wouldn't go
This
with-
is on the town council packet, but this is in a zoning board ordinance itself,
Council
right?
Register, are you in this meeting?
I am trying to visualize what they're talking about. So I'm trying to
Okay.
pull that up onto the thing so that we can see what
Why not?
changes.
If that's what we're doing, why not go with motion 1, which is a little, it's not quite as high as 45 feet, but if the council was to approve that, and then at least a little bit downtown, it would be considered of the concerns we've heard from some members of the community, and if the council wanted to go higher to 45 feet or 48 feet, the council could then initiate a new change to increase it higher. But that gets to what Paul said, decide something and then incrementally change it.
And for instance, as part of that change, we may want to at that time also allow 3 bedrooms and also not require 50% of the first floor be, or retail be 50 feet deep.
Right.
So put in all the things that we
Right.
want to fix.
And
Get one
also-
thing on the books and then put all the
Right,
things
and
we want to
eliminate the
fix.
5th story as a conditional use on certain lots. That could be one.
Or put back even.
Well, but if motion 1 was done, we wouldn't lose the 5th story by conditional use.
We've already agreed to the other we voted on. Already
But the
agreed to.
council could still have a hearing on motion 1 too.
I see.
Well, you've already had a hearing on motion 1.
Yeah, correct.
No,
I think so.
Yeah, you had
Yeah,
a
we
hearing
just
on it
need
back
to
in
vote on it.
September.
no. It came back from the council initiated it.
There we go.
The council sent it to the planning board. Planning board sent it back. Now the council has to hold a hearing on those changes that the planning board incorporated.
No, we had a public hearing on version 1 on July 7th, so we could vote it yay or nay now. But
On A, but the council didn't like what it had on July 7th and sent it back to the planning board. And the planning board has sent back some changes that the council asked the planning board to include. And
So-
if that's what the council wants, the council has to send that now to a public hearing, because it's different from what the first public hearing was.
We could pass version 1 tonight, or pass version 2 tonight. Version 3, which is the planning board 50 feet, we could not pass
No,
tonight.
you can't pass version 2 tonight. You can only pass the very first one the council had, that the council could approve tonight, because we've had a public hearing on it, but the council didn't like that. It asked the planning board to make some changes, which the planning board did.
Okay, so only the first one could be approved tonight.
Right.
And the one that we just voted could be approved on the 16th.
Right.
And 16th, we could also start to even change what we've approved, I guess. The motion you're making now is to already change as if that were approved. So I guess my question is, does your motion negate having the public hearing here and being able to do anything about it? Does it now open it up like, no, we can't decide because there's now another motion that is pending?
I don't think procedurally they're two separate ordinances, no.
It'd be different, it just, what you've just moved in card and seconded would be a few steps behind the 50-foot one.
Councilor Friedrichs, could you please show me which green buildings you're talking about this impacting?
All of the green buildings.
Oh, all of the green buildings.
Yeah.
Well, many of them have already been redeveloped. And,
Right.
Yeah, there's
nothing
only
to
a
do with
couple
them.
that are actually impacted by it.
Okay, can we, which ones would they be?
The ones along
Scorbs.
Madbury Court.
Right here?
Yep,
That one,
that one. that
everything
one.
along the front there until,
No, not those.
until you get to the juicery.
So this little section right here is what you're discussing? The amendments for the Eve line?
Well,
It's
that,
6
and there's his Scorpions is in there on the other side, right? Scorps and Village Pizza.
Okay. Thank you. That helps me understand what I'm actually voting on.
You know, hope they don't touch the walls.
Yeah, I hope they don't. God, because it's such a valuable
Like all the-
historical building.
The feedback that like Doug Banks and Michael Barron provided are incorporated now in motion 1 on the communication. But that's a lower, but subsequently we all kind of realized that's not high enough.
Right.
So, but we're caught because we can't without sending it back to the planning board again, according to our attorney.
I'm a little amused that the ordinance that the motion that you made, you reference a building in Portsmouth that's 45 feet saying, see, look at this building, it can be built at 45 feet, so why don't we make it 45 feet? And the fact is that building, that very building, at 45 feet with a pitched roof, is in a zone that allows 50 feet. But they didn't use 50 feet, and that's the argument I was making. But they had flexibility, and they said, yeah, this is all we need. We're not going to go any higher than we need. So,
Not only that,
I think
that whole concept there, the building next to it that's taller, is all part of the same development. They designed it that way, so that the brick building's there, that other story building with the pitched roof is there, and then there's a building behind it. It's all one development. And they've made it different for character all the way through that block. It's the block, not just that building. Same builder, same design, concept are different. Not all the same, not all the same all the way along that road.
So we've got a motion and a second on the floor.
Right.
So how do we want to proceed?
We'll go ahead and proceed with a vote then, I guess. Counselor Grant?
Heather Grant, nay?
Robin vote nay.
M. Friedrichs, good points. I think I'm coming back to what Cardin said, which is that really looking to say,
We're in voting mode.
okay. Then M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, nay.
forget where we are. Sunnydale,
Wayne Burton, aye.
Darrell Ford, nay.
Curtis Racer, nay.
Cardin Welsh, aye.
So let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 noes. So it fails. Motion fails.
We'll revisit.
Okay. Any other discussion on this issue? Projected motions. All right.
So what happens next is a
We're going to have a
hearing?
public hearing on the 16th.
On the 50 feet, 4 stories, 50 feet for the downtown CB1.
That would remove conditional use from a chunk of downtown and change what's happening at 66 Main Street to then be reconsidered or not in the future.
All right. You good? Moving on then. There being no unfinished business, we have our roundtable. Would anyone like to?
Sure, I'll start.
Go ahead.
IMAC met on January 21st. We had a report from Sam Hewitt, Assistant Director of the DPW, talking about, the training of new employees. Some of those include people that are driving our snowplows. So I hope that people understand that. Well, some of them, they didn't have a lot of time to train. Necessity came quicker. Now that we have voted tonight to support the curbside pickup by Casella, that'll be moving forward, but we got an update. One of the things we talked about at IMAC is the importance of people knowing, don't buy a new toter, because everyone in town will be getting new toters in this process of switching to Casella. So don't go out and buy one now, because you're going to get one from the town, unless you really need one. And you won't be able to use your own. So just putting the word out now, but we'll hope to get that out in a did you know before too long. Still waiting for approval from DES for the transfer station upgrade plan. Then there's there were discussions about PFAS. There's going to be a subcommittee of IMAC looking at that. An update from the sustainability newsletter with Julie Kelly contacting 8 different groups that are sustainability based. So there will be a newsletter that'll come out quarterly. That's still in, but there will be probably 8 different groups contributing. People about the Casella Curbside Program are hoping to remind residents about their composting options. And actually, we've been talking about something called compost teams in neighborhoods that might help people with composting as well. So we'll see where that goes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just in terms of contracting out with Casella, that is estimated to save the town about $35,000 a year.
Yeah, great.
I want to reinforce your point as well of composting. Councilor Ford reminded me that the compost challenge has created a new habit in the registered household. We ended up buying one of those things with the microorganisms in it. So it takes 16 days or whatever to turn it into just usable compost, and so that's actually pretty cool. I'm thinking my wife's plotting on my departure.
A little green berry.
It'll take her a while.
Where's Curtis?
Went on a trip and 16 days later.
Actually, I have some good news from Concord. The bill I filed to bring special ed to higher ed for students coming off IEPs, there's about 1,000 of them in the community college system. I've got an agreement with the Republicans to put $100,000 into the community college budget to do programming for these students. Because they're all over the scale because when they leave high school, they go up their IEP and they go on a 504, which is not nearly as strong, and they get lost. And that's the last frontier. So I'm going to bring it in, we're going to exec on the bill tomorrow, and I think I've got the support to do it, and the governor actually directed her assistant to help with it. So maybe some good will come out of Concord for some people. If you can get the low-hanging fruit, maybe we can start to get along again and actually govern instead of fighting all the time. It's really hard when everything is so partisan.
Conservation Commission, we have continued on the subcommittees working on the WSOD, and we get together this Wednesday for gathering all that information, trying to make sense out of it, put it in some kind of a new final form.
Okay, for AgCom, they they met on 12 January. In here, they reviewed the Wetland Shoreline Conservation Overlay District. We had a little bit of a shakeup with the departure of our the deputy, and so they are working on the reorganization of the Ag Commission currently. But keep your eyes peeled for farmers market updates, because that's quickly coming up. And then I'm going to continue to beat the drum for the illustrious, the enjoyable, the agricultural Farm Day. It should be coming up in August here. Once we get a final date, I'll make sure I push it out. Oyster River School Board, I think one of the public comments mentioned that there is a deliberative session in Mohammed Cafeteria tomorrow, 3 February. I believe it's 7 p.m.
It's ORMS Recital Hall.
As you were. Thank you for the correction.
Yes.
School and the recital hall, but the 4 February school board meeting is in the Mohammed Cafeteria.
Yeah.
Stratford County, I hate they canceled the last meeting, and they went into non-public session for the most recent ones. I did become aware through Chairman Rasmussen that I have been going to the county commissioner meetings and not the Stratford Regional Planning Commission meetings, and they are in different towns or different cities. So I will endeavor to do both of those things now. So Friday is Stratford Regional Planning, and I will try to go to that one. So the DBA last met 12 January. They were able to compile a petition in the conversation we've heard. The next meeting is 11 February, I believe at 5:15 at Clark's. And pending any questions, that concludes my portion.
Councilor.
Yes, the Land Stewardship Subcommittee met last in January. First thing we did was review the Doe Farm Management Plan. I think a lot of you know that we cut trees down in the Doe Farm and sell them, and it raises money. Doesn't really raise that much. A lot of the management plan is designed to take care of invasives, keep a healthy forest there, take out some dead wood, and Ted Howard informed us, gave us sort of a breakdown of that. We also looked at kiosk construction. Our properties we done with kiosks explaining things to people. That's all underway. We have a bunch of Boy Scouts who are building benches. They're going to be placed on some of our properties, and I believe that's already underway. There's a project tracker looking at all the programs and plans that we have and tracking them throughout the year so that they don't get delayed or forgotten. And I think that's about it. We have a meeting on the 11th, and one of the things we're talking about is the proposed or the possibility of having restricting parking at Wagon Hill to Durham residents. So if you'd like to come, I'm sure it will be an exciting meeting. That's it.
Okay, so the planning board has met twice. On the 14th, items were the state laws changes, public hearing, and then that moved over into the meeting that was just held. last week, so I'll wind that up again. We had the public hearing on the CB1 zoning, which you guys have had, and seen that. And then the EV charging stations were postponed. That rolled into the meeting last week, where we sent back we made decisions on the amendments to the state laws that had come to the town council. The town council had taken it back over to the planning board with a change in that. The planning board did not agree with that change. And so we've brought it back. It's coming back to the town council unchanged and recommending that we go forward with the original adoption of the state law changes into our zoning. We've seen a prospective rezoning on a lot at Cowell Drive, and that's a lot that just abuts the post office, so it's at Church Hill District, and of course that next house in is in the RA, and they're requesting a change so that they can go with more density. So that was 10 Cowell Drive. Then we have the zoning amendments by the Housing Task Force, and there was some discussion on that, and it's going to continue. So I didn't listen to the entire portion of that. I didn't go to that meeting, but I did listen to it over DCAT. And there's more to come on the zoning that came out of the Housing Task Force. And then the EV charging station, planning made a decision that we should not try and regulate that at this time with any suggested changes that came forward. Yeah, if you could talk about that, because I know there's some discussion on it.
We did discuss the proposal from the Energy Committee, and the planning board was very appreciative of all their work in coming up with a proposed ordinance. But it was the feeling of the planning board that we didn't think that it was necessary to regulate that at this time, make people do it. We felt the market would take care of that. And also going to talk about making EV chargers an allowed accessory use in every zone, so that it wouldn't be, we wouldn't need a separate ordinance for it. So that was that.
I'm sure that will be a discussion point for the Durham Energy Committee tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock here in the council chambers. And the Durham Human
Very
Rights
appreciative, though.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Very much so. The fact that it was even a conversation to begin with is we're always thankful for that. And the Durham Human Rights Commission is going to be meeting on February 12th at 3:30. Just a quick community note to everybody out there. This is Super Bowl Sunday coming up this weekend in Philadelphia. They usually grease up the polls. I don't think Durham wants to have to do that. When the Patriots end up winning 24-17 this weekend, I want everybody to be responsible. I want everybody to be safe and really take care of themselves this weekend, because it should be a good time. So that's all the
That's a good point. Are you working with UNH? If you folks haven't lived through the aftermath, I pulled a kid off a pole down there after the Red Sox won the pennant. The president of UNH waded through the crowd, and
Yeah, we've got a long history of managing the aftermath of regional sporting events. And so it's all hands on deck for Durham Police this Sunday evening, and we'll have mutual aid from around the region here as well helping us. We'll have an extra shift on the fire department as well. And this will be Command Central in this room. And we'll have officers and public safety people deployed downtown, and the goal is just to make sure, win or lose, people celebrate responsibly and safely, and when they're done, they go back to their rooms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Need more introverts.
Nothing to add tonight.
Oh yeah, hold on. I got a long list, so let's see.
Oh, no.
So, one area that I've observed and UNH has observed as well is that we've, especially post-COVID, we've really lost our venue to talk about issues of joint concern with the downtown community, the business community and the landlord community, and to work collaboratively on issues. And so the student services folks at UNH and I are kind of problem solving on how we might pull together a new kind of a forum or mechanism to do that. And so stay tuned. We hope to roll something out in the next month or so. Let me just see. Some of these things have been talked about already. Just see. Just a note, I sent the council a brief note on this earlier. We've reached a tentative agreement with AFSCME, our collective bargaining group that represents our public works employees, and we'll be bringing a ratification vote forward to the council on February 16th, just for your information. We're still in active negotiations with the firefighters for a collective bargaining agreement with them. We've touched upon the Patriot. Town Clerk Rachel Dean will, and our various election officials will be testing our new ballot counting machine on Wednesday, February 11th at 11. And so people are welcome to attend that. I believe it's in this room in the council chambers. It'll be a public forum, or public session.
Todd, what day was that again?
February 11th, 1 a.m.
Thank you.
We are also working to set up a candidate forum for this year's town council candidates. That has set now for February 18th at 7 p.m. in the council room. Moderator Chris Regan will moderate the event. We're asking residents to send their questions to Karen Edwards, my administrative assistant, and she'll forward them all to Chris Regan, who will decide what will be asked and in what order, etc.
What day was that?
Oh, no,
February 18th at 7 p.m.
7, that was what I was.
Yeah, 7 p.m. And that will be televised on DCAT and rebroadcast as well. And we are putting the biographies of all the candidates on the website as they're submitted. So you can learn more about the candidates there. Let me see, we've talked about contracting out solid waste. I am sad. I will just note that we will not be taking delivery of the state's first electric EV trash truck. We had gotten a grant and expended a lot of time pursuing that and extending the grant, but it's all for the good. There's a lot of information for interested members of the public in the quarterly goals update, which was in this week's council packet. So folks who are interested can read that. We also had a link from the Friday updates. We've talked about Human Rights Commission already. Today I attended a really interesting briefing regarding the Great Div. This is an effort working to restore and protect the Great Bay Estuary and watershed by 2030 with a vision of clean water, healthy habitats and stewardship, climate resilience, engaged coastal communities, and protecting priority lands. It's led by several parties that include the Great Bay National Estuary Research Reserve, the Nature Conservancy, NHDES, and PREP. And it is funded by a $12 million grant from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation from a donor who is housed in the Great Bay area. In fact, in Durham, I believe. Let me just see.
Hey, Todd, how do we find out about that?
If you were to simply Google Great Bay 2020, excuse me, Great Bay 2030, you'll find it.
Okay.
There's a website set up for it, and there's a lot of good information.
First result.
Excellent, first result, good. Years ago, several years ago, we had, probably 5 years ago, we had signed up for the Global Covenant for Mayors for Climate and Energy to try to help us formulate our climate action plan and our focus on trying to address a warming world and being proactive locally. I had noted about a year ago we were starting to question the value of that particular entity, and we've made the decision that we just aren't pulling value from it. A different organization called ICLEI, I-C-L-E-I, called Local Governments for Sustainability, is useful for us. They have a lot of information and data that helps us track climate impacts. We're going to continue to stay affiliated with ICLEI, but we're going to decouple from Global Covenant. That tends to be more globally focused and really for communities around the world who are looking for partners to talk about how they're working on climate change. But there's not a lot of useful stuff for us. And particularly where we have our clients, we'd rather spend time pursuing it and checking off some of the items we've identified. Let me just see. This past weekend, we provided a special detail during the ideal sledding conditions at Wagon Hill Farm, and we didn't have any issues, as far as I know, with parking. It went pretty smoothly. We've touched upon deliberative session already, and the new UNH Student Senate External Affairs rep came over with Ben Doyle this past week to meet with me for about an hour to introduce themselves and to talk about initiatives on campus. And they had a lot of questions about sort of what we're doing downtown with building heights. They had questions about that. They had questions about Super Bowl planning. They had questions about guns on campus. That was another topic. So we had a productive conversation. And we're very busy in our office with a host of items, so you can look forward to more issues coming to the council. I have another long list of unanimous consent items, but there's, I think for the public who isn't involved with it, there's, the unanimous consent agenda goes really fast, but there's a lot of time pulling that all together, just for your information. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Just a couple of footnotes to tonight. The courts have said that the state should spend $7,700 per student to the towns. It's been at $4,000 forever, and the state is ignoring the court. It actually costs us about $22,000 a pupils. Right. And so this state gives us $4,000 to help. The second thing is I'm working hard with a group on special ed is a big expense, and it's really getting bigger, but it's effective. And so we have a number of different proposals. But one of them is to take SWIFT and send it to the treasurer and not let us keep the money, I think. And so they're really taking the existing part and just trying to spread it around. And many of the towns are getting very nervous about that, because so we're anxiously waiting to, Kelly Ayot's going to give her State of the State address to us on Thursday. And then we're going to squawk Thursday afternoon, and we'll go back at it. But it's a pretty grim picture, and it's not Todd's fault that the town is losing all this money. And I also, it's really hard for me to watch the old crowd and the new crowd going at it, and it's really, many of these people are my friends. We're now 80 years old, and I hope we can reach a level of civility so that we can all agree on things. I won't be on the council. I got 2 more meetings, something like that. I'm going to miss the travel reimbursement.
I think it's been pretty civil.
Well, it's been well, not I'm thinking the meeting where the gentleman dressed up in the thing that was uncalled for.
So I'll go ahead and give my report too on the to the round table, if you're all set. Thank you. Durham Parks and Rec met on the 27th of January. Some of the things went over. We have upcoming events. There's a Sweetheart Skate on Valentine's Day at the rink from 3:30 to 5. Parks and Rec does a good job of promoting what they do. So you can see all of it. And on Sunday, March 15th, there'll be a Slush Cup pond hockey tournament over at the rink as well. And on Saturday, April 4th at 9:30 a.m. at the high school, there'll be the Easter egg hunt, which was so successful last year. The Trails subgroup has been working closely with the Land Stewardship Committee on signs and kiosks, on Jackson's Landing accessibility, and the committee also discussed Wagon Hill parking and its impacts. They're looking at their strategic planning and their committee goals for 2026. And their next meeting will be on February 24th of 26, coming up in a couple of weeks. There was a Zoom meeting the same day, January 27th, of the Tri-Region Economic Development Stakeholders. There were about 30 participants. And there were presentations from the Chambers of Commerce of Somersworth, Portsmouth, Hampton, and Dover to the group. I was asked to join the Stratford Economic Development District Strategy Committee to help set the strategy for economic development in the region, which includes most of Stratford County, some of the other counties, about 30 towns. And it's made up of people from this whole region. They got started. The next meeting will be the 27th of February, and they hope to be all done by the end of May to set strategy and put it forward for a vote of what they'll be pursuing going forward. We had talked last meeting about Todd's evaluation, and that we will do that at our next meeting.
Is there any sign of the state in ec development? Because they fired the previous ec development person.
Right. They've hired
a woman that's taken over.
Yes. The state was represented with somebody from the Business and Economic Affairs Office, Karen Inhofe.
They should become more active. I mean,
they're generally there. They at least have one representative there, and I've seen them, some in other places. So the people under the commissioner are out in the field still.
They tend to pay attention to the Nashville, Manchester, Concord corridor because they've got the political clout.
But they have been active region and in this tri-region also. So I feel like they are being supportive.
Good, thank you.
Yes. Also in the Todd's update on goals, it was mentioned that I was pushing for an arts commission. It was something I did bring up in goals. I've got information about what Portsmouth is doing, what Dover is doing, what some other towns are doing, but I have not advanced it, and I don't know if this council is really interested in doing that or not. You know, it's been talked about that Wagon Hill is going to have these changing art exhibits. There is some public art downtown. It would be a group that would perhaps make recommendations as needed as artistic things come up. They could take it further. It isn't really rec because it's about art, but I don't know if we should pursue it anymore, so I'll just throw that out there.
I think there's still value in it. I think there's artistic representation in the decision makings of the town, and I think a lot of the community, I mean, I'm all for anything that brings community together, and art is one of those that brings community together. And so I think there is value there, but that's just me.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can figure something out to move it forward and put together a group to at least, what does a commission look like? Who are the members? What would their charge be? You know, how often would they meet? And what, you know, so, but I think this community has a lot of creative people, and we could find people here that would be willing to do that and for the betterment of us all. Anyway, that's my report for today. And does anybody have any last comments, other comments, anything else for the roundtable?
My son's been training for the Easter egg hunt. So.
Keep him under control, will you?
You went and mugged the 1-year-olds last time.
All in favor? Well, we got to do it on a...
Councilor Grant, aye.
Robin vote aye.
M. Friedrichs, aye.
Joe Friedman, aye.
Zanida, aye.
Wayne Burton, aye.
Darrell Ford, aye.
Courage Fraser, aye.
Hardin Welsh, aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
You didn't even let me get my sentence out before you rejected my proposal.